What if I told you that a psychopath isn't a crazed killer, but could be your boss, your partner, or that one person who always makes you feel guilty? American psychiatrist Hervey Cleckley, a pioneer in describing clinical psychopathy, defined the psychopath as someone who provokes moral confusion in others and manipulates emotions with apparent innocence. That's what makes them go unnoticed in society, because most people picture a psychopath as a movie villain. But not all psychopaths end up in prison. In fact, many live ordinary lives and end up in powerful offices, intimate relationships, or even in your closest circle. Psychopaths don't feel guilt. They don't feel empathy, but they do know how to mimic emotions, manipulate your perception, and earn your trust. Today, from a neuroscience perspective, I'll show you how a functional psychopath thinks, why you don't see it coming, and whether they can really change. Welcome, neurocurious minds. Let's begin by understanding what a functional psychopath really is. When you hear the word psychopath, you probably picture a serial killer, a cold stare, a chilling presence. But reality is far more unsettling. Most psychopaths don't kill. They don't use knives. They use words. They use power. They use your trust. A functional psychopath is someone who can fully adapt to society while carrying inside a cold, calculating, and empathy-free mind. They feel no guilt, no remorse, but they learn to fake it extremely well. Many of them are successful. They have partners. They have careers. Some even have fans. You don't notice them because they don't match the cinematic stereotype. Their emotional intelligence isn't about feeling. It's about reading your emotions so they can manipulate you better. Psychologically, they share traits with antisocial personality disorder, but that doesn't mean they break the law. Sometimes they simply destroy your self-esteem or your peace of mind, and they do it all with a charming smile. In fact, there are settings where they thrive better than anyone else, because in certain environments, emotional detachment isn't seen as a flaw, it's seen as an advantage. In an operating room, for example, a functional psychopath can perform with surgical precision, unaffected by pain or death. In a courtroom, they can use flawless logic without empathy to defend the indefensible. In a corporate boardroom, they can make decisions that harm hundreds, while smiling convincingly and delivering a brilliant speech. And in politics, well, manipulation isn't just tolerated. Sometimes it's rewarded. Not all psychopaths end up in prison. Some end up in power, because what makes them functional is not their talent. It's their ability to mimic humanity without feeling it. What are the most common traits of a functional psychopath? Maybe you're living with one, or maybe you already did, and you're still wondering why you left that relationship so wounded, so confused, so drained. Functional psychopaths don't attack by shouting. They wear you down with silence. Their violence isn't always visible, but it's very real. They're often charming at first, charisma, intelligence, presence. They make you feel special, chosen, admired. But all of that is calculated. They're trained, consciously or not, to detect your emotional vulnerabilities, your unmet needs, and give you exactly what you long for, only to later use it against you. They lack empathy, but they've mastered the art of pretending. They can comfort you without ever feeling your pain. They can say, "I love you," without actually experiencing love. They can apologize without feeling the slightest guilt. Their surface charm isn't tenderness, it's strategy. And behind that smile may be a mind observing you like a science experiment. How you react, what hurts you, how to break you. They're also compulsive liars, but they lie so naturally, so seamlessly, that you might start thinking you're the problem for doubting them. And the most unsettling part? They can have vibrant social lives, friends, fans, even fame. But behind that apparent success, there's an invisible pattern they repeat over and over. They charm, they manipulate, they use, and they discard. And when you finally confront them, you'll always end up being the one to blame. Always. That's how they are. Cold, calculating, brilliant on the surface and hollow underneath. One of the most disturbing questions is, are they born this way or made this way? Science doesn't have a single, clear answer yet, but here's what we do know. The brain of a functional psychopath does not process the world the same way yours does. The differences are not just emotional, they are neurological, physical, measurable, real. How does their brain work? First, the amygdala. This small brain structure is responsible for detecting fear, danger, guilt, and empathy. In people with psychopathic traits, it has been observed to function at a significantly lower intensity. That means they can see suffering but not feel it. They can know they're causing harm, but their brain doesn't trigger the inner alarm that would stop you. They don't experience guilt like most people, nor do they feel fear about the emotional consequences of their actions. Next, the orbitofrontal cortex. This region helps us make moral decisions, assess social risks, and predict how others might react. In psychopaths, this area can also be impaired. That's why they're able to make cold, insensitive, or even cruel decisions, fully aware of what they're doing, but without the emotional weight that comes with it. And lastly, the reward system, specifically the brain's dopaminergic system. This is what activates when we achieve something we desire. In psychopaths, studies have found that this system can be hyperactive, meaning they feel a surge of anticipation and pleasure just at the thought of gaining power, control, or advantage. Does that mean they enjoy hurting people? Not necessarily, but they can enjoy getting their way, manipulating, winning without their conscience ever stepping in. And that's exactly what makes them so dangerous. It's not that they don't understand what they're doing. It's that their brain doesn't impose any moral or emotional brakes. And here comes the most disturbing part. They don't suffer from what they do, but you suffer from what they do. And that is what makes them so terrifying. Why don't we notice them? How is it possible for a psychopath to go unnoticed, sometimes for years? The answer is simple and chilling. Because they know exactly how to blend in. They don't yell. They don't slam tables. They don't wave knives. They're subtle, elegant, and far more effective. A functional psychopath doesn't need physical violence. All they need is to manipulate your perception, distort your reality, and plant doubt where there was once clarity. They're experts at reading people, but not to connect emotionally. They do it to know what to show, what to hide, and how to build a version of themselves that you'll be drawn to. They can be charismatic, charming, friendly, and sometimes even seem vulnerable. But all of it is part of the disguise. They know exactly how to earn your trust, and once they do, they can shape your reality like clay in their hands. Where can you find them? Everywhere. And you don't notice them because you'd never imagine that someone so normal, so successful, or so charming could be completely incapable of feeling empathy. And that is their power. Maybe you've already met one. Maybe you still don't know it. But your body remembers. Functional psychopaths don't arrive like a storm. They show up like a gentle breeze, like someone brilliant, charming, and admirable. Someone who knows exactly what to say to make you let your guard down. Sometimes they're bosses, charismatic, assertive, and decisive. In the boardroom, they seem like natural-born leaders. They inspire. They fascinate. But when no one is watching, they humiliate. They control with words, with silence, with fear disguised as high standards. And when something goes wrong, it's never their fault. They always find someone to blame, and they do it with such eloquence that everyone believes them. Other times, they're romantic partners, and at first they're a dream. They make you feel unique, special, like someone finally sees you. But little by little, they begin to shape you. Your emotions become drama, your concerns, overreactions, and you become the problem that didn't exist before. The unsettling part is they don't yell, they don't hit. They simply twist the story with such subtlety that you end up apologizing for things you never did. And sometimes they're friends, the kind who are always in crisis, always have an emergency, always need something from you. They manipulate from a place of need, from guilt, and when you dare to set a boundary, they make you feel selfish, as if your freedom were a betrayal. They do it so well that by the time you finally realize it, you're already emotionally drained, confused, and alone. And the most disturbing part? To everyone else, they're still that wonderful person everyone admires. But you know the truth because you've seen the mask and the emptiness hiding behind it. This is the part that hurts the most. The part most people don't want to hear, but need to understand. Can you reason with a functional psychopath? Not the way you expect, not like you would with someone emotionally healthy, because when you reason, you use empathy as a meeting point. They don't. When you speak from pain, you hope the other person will feel with you. They don't feel with you. They study you. And if they sense you're vulnerable, they'll use that moment to their advantage, not to heal, but to regain control. And can they change? The short answer is yes. Some experts believe change is possible, but the truth is much more complex. One study applied an intensive intervention program to young people with psychopathic traits and found a reduction in violent behavior, along with improved social functioning. But most don't want to change because in order to change, they'd have to admit that something inside them is broken. And their mental structure is designed precisely to deny that, to deny any flaw, to deny any weakness, to deny they need help. Even when they go to therapy, if they go, they do it out of obligation or convenience, not conviction. In fact, some studies even show that conventional therapies can actually make certain psychopaths worse because they end up learning more sophisticated emotional manipulation techniques during the process. And when they do commit to change, it requires deep, specialized, and sustained work, retraining their neural circuits, modifying deeply ingrained patterns, and enduring emotional discomfort over a long period of time. Very few are willing to do that because they don't feel they need it, and they don't feel they owe you anything. And almost always, their motivation comes from personal interests, avoiding legal consequences, improving their public image, not from genuine remorse. Some might achieve a certain degree of change, especially if they're young and still in the early stages of the disorder, and if they receive intensive, specialized treatment. But most of the time, the change doesn't start with them. It starts with the people around them, with your awareness, with your decision to stop playing the game, with your ability to see beyond the disguise. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. If this video helped you realize something that your curious mind already suspected, subscribe and share it with others, because knowledge is the door to personal freedom. See you soon, neurocurious ones.